Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Pleasure Priority Podcast with me, Amber Taylor. This is the podcast all about how you can have the audacity to put yourself and your pleasure first, which ultimately shapes a life perfect for you. We discuss friends and family, career and money, oppression, healing, and mental health, current events, and historical ones too. Basically, all things life and pleasure and how you can create more of it authentically. I'm your host, Amber Taylor, and it's my pleasure to talk to you every week. Let's tune in. Hello, 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 my friends, and welcome back to the Pleasure Priority Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest for you. But we are having Carlos DelaPlaya today. And I initially met him in a group that we're in together, but I initially was like super attracted to him. I never told you this. When you were doing marketing or like helping promo for Ajne's program, maybe like last year or a little more than that. And you're like fucking magnetic. Like I just watched you like just be a light. And I was like, ooh, I want some more of that. So I've been, a little baby creeper stalker since. And I'm very happy to have you today. So Carlos, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us
Oh
what
my
you
God. My heart is already on. That
do.
felt so good to hear. Literally everything you said is like so on brand. Wow, thank you for saying that. Thank you for calling me magnetic. I love being called that. Um, Hi, I'm Carlos. I'm Carlos DelaPlaya. I consider myself like a life and self-expression coach. Um, and I really am fascinated by creating more aliveness in our lives. I actually like to focus a lot more on creating aliveness and creating a sense of mystery and creating a sense of adventure and sort of relationship with life rather than like controlling and getting these massive measurable results, which that's part of what I do as well if people want that. Yet the way that I approach life and sort of this quest that people call self-improvement is to sort of engage with it in this sort of mysterious, almost hero's journey kind of way, and to make it feel alive. And feeling alive doesn't necessarily mean that I feel blissed out all the time. Sometimes aliveness is asking for grief and for anger, and sometimes aliveness is asking for orgasms and like confidence and courage. And um, I help people say yes to their unique aliveness, like whatever that is, and to learn how to express that. When people hear self-expression coach, like I've had people come to me and be like, oh, can you help me like fix my posture on stage? And I want to look a certain way and be perceived a certain way. And I'm like, actually, no, that's not what I do. That's not what I do. What you're asking me to do is to fix something that's not broken. That ain't my approach. What
Mhm.
I'm here to do is to help you be more of you. So like the parts of you that you think are awkward, uh, taking the shame out of that and learning to see your awkwardness as part of your medicine. The part of you that's very artistic and has trouble focusing and is always tapped into the freaking spirit realms, you know what I mean? Like, instead of trying to fix that and, create more focus by eating these foods and meditating this certain way, I'm going to help you like turn that into a gift and to sort of unshackle, right? And when we do that, I find, at least on my journey, that things that we thought we wanted start to fall away and dissolve. And what we really want starts to become super clear and it becomes easier to get.
Yes. I love that so much. And like basically the way that you're describing aliveness is like humanity and like being comfortable in your own humanity, which is like what I do as well. I mean, honestly, we all do the same shit, just dress it up a little different. But for like I used to call myself an authenticity coach. And before I put the pleasure on top of that, and people would be like confused, what is that? Or can you make me into who I think I want to be versus who I really am? And like that's why I stuck with the pleasure, because when we follow that, it's like you're not going to do stuff that you're not really into if you're not if you are following your pleasure. So using that as like the North Star is like a way to navigate to more of you, more of your authenticity, more of your humanity, more of your aliveness, if you will. But I would like to talk about like the other parts you mentioned, the mystery and the adventure. So what do those mean to you, and like how do you incorporate them in your own life and coaching?
Oh, such a good question. Okay, so I think in modern day culture, there's sort of this romanticization of understanding and knowing, and like having proof before doing something. And that's not a bad thing, right? Like it's cool to like have a science study validate something that you desire, or it's cool when someone has blazed a trail that you want to walk a similar trail, right? There's nothing wrong with that, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to learn from people. But what I've seen has happened sort of in modern day culture, at least especially in America where I live, is like needing a path to be clear before we move forward. And what this turns into is like people consuming self-help book after self-help book and podcast after podcast like drugs, you know. Or you know, I describe it to people as like you're leaving your body the same way someone who's like addicted to ketamine would, like to consume information. And again, there's nothing wrong with information, right? Yet there's another way of consciousness that's a little bit less logical and a little bit more feeling based, and it's what I call like the mystery of life. It's that which can't be proven.
Mm,
It's that which we engage with when we can close our eyes and look at the black behind our eyelids as if a movie screen's about to turn on, or when we can listen to the sound of the universe as if like literally nature is going to speak to you. You know, if we could tune in so deeply to our body that we can feel every little sensation happening at once, when we can listen with that level of depth and intensity, we start to get clues, at least in my own experience. Like I start to get clues of like where I'm truly being invited into in life. And it feels like I'm being invited or pulled in a direction rather than like, okay, well, I was taught in school that I'm supposed to like get a master's degree and in order to be happy and make 100K and do this job. And it's very logical, and like someone else did it and someone said I should do it, so I'm going to do it. And there's no listening. It's very controlling. It's very like, and again, there's the energy of like domination and submission, so to speak. Like these energies are in everybody, right? And everybody has a part that needs a little bit of control, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like if we didn't have that part, we would probably go fucking insane in the
mm,
chaotic sort of mystery energy. Yet what this mystery and how I sort of apply it into my life is, you know, one thing I do a lot is I only listen to like a podcast or a book these days if it's like I've hit a roadblock in my hero's journey and I couldn't really figure out the answer and I need a little support. That's when I'm like, okay, now it's time for like someone's external wisdom. And
mm,
and it's strategic in that way. And the sort of listening to the mystery and going on this hero's journey that I'm kind of talking about here in a metaphor is when we can listen to those clues, follow those clues, even though there's no evidence. And and understanding that the only reason evidence was created in life by anybody for any path is because they had faith in something that had zero evidence. And my favorite quote in the world right now, and I just keep saying this to myself all the time, is faith is more powerful than proof. When proof ends, faith begins. What does that mean? What does that mean? When we don't have evidence or a science study or somebody else to validate our desire, then we get to trust that our desire is enough validation. And that takes a shit ton of courage in a world that like romanticizes comfort, romanticizes being certain all the time. I actually think it would be fun to like romanticize uncertainty sometimes too. Like I feel uncertain and I'm turned on by this. I'm letting myself be turned on by this. And it takes practice, right? It's not a flip of it. For some people, at least for me, to this day, it's not a flip of a switch moment. It's an ongoing relationship, you know? But like life has a mystery. Like, have you ever thought of somebody and then suddenly they text you? That's mystery.
Yeah.
It's something that has yet to be proven by evidence to my knowledge, right? Like, you know, there's so many times where like, you know, I'm thinking of a next step and then I look at the clock and I see a number that's relevant to me. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, you know, that's part of this mystery. And as children, I think we come into the world naturally curious and naturally embodied in that mystery. And then sort of these shackles of society start to decondition our desire to lean into that.
Yeah. So much good stuff in there. I really love that quote, but like kind of the thing that came up for me when you were talking was organized religion and how like there are totally like a lot of different religions and everybody has their way of viewing things, and it is faith. However, we try to become like so certain about even faith that it's like, oh no, mine's the right one. Oh, mine's the right one. Or let's get in a war because I'm fucking right about this shit that we don't know.
Dude, needing to be right is like the biggest boner killer of life. Like when we can let go of the constant need and addiction to being right, and we can let ourselves be wrong and actually romanticize that and be like, actually, I don't fucking need to know why. I just trust. Like life starts to feel more adventurous. Even if you're doing something mundane, you could be working your job and you're like, I trust and I'm listening and I'm engaged with mystery. And I trust that I'm exactly where I need to be. And when you're in that state, it actually creates, like from a neuroscience perspective, it creates sort of an openness in the nervous system. You're closer to rest and digest and less in fight or flight. And what a lot of people are in the process of learning is that when we're in rest and digest, we literally have more blood flow to the parts of the brain that are associated with creativity and can think metaphorically and can feel turned on, right? Because we're safe. And when we feel that safety, we get ideas of that light us up and we feel more connected to our inner child. Or maybe we feel so safe that like an old wound comes up to be released and now you're free from it forever after like sobbing your eyes out for a second, right? Like, and I think people are craving this, Amber. Like people are craving mystery. This is why we snort Netflix hero's journey movies like drugs too, because not that there's anything wrong with that. Like I fucking watch Netflix multiple times a week. Hello. And you know, I think we crave the hero's journey because our subconscious mind like wants that. Like we want, you know, and take what resonates, leave the rest behind. I believe that we want adventure. We want to rock the boat from time to time, to take a risk.
We want to beat the villains and be the hero and like reach the end of our journey. And yeah, it's I don't know, a lot of powerful stuff. I lost what I was about to say, but I think this is a good time to introduce some anime into the conversation.
Hello.
So I know you're a fiend just like me. What's your favorite anime, either all time or right now?
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna say two because I'm a rebel, but like all time, definitely Naruto. I'm a basic bitch. Like I love Naruto. And but right now, Demon Slayer for sure.
Love
It's
Demon
just,
Slayer.
oh, so good. Those two
Yeah.
shows.
Demon Slayer was one of the first ones I watched. I didn't get to Naruto yet because I prioritized One Piece. And everybody said that you can't catch up, but
Yeah,
here I am.
I've never seen One Piece,
It
actually.
is
That's funny that you say that.
fucking phenomenal.
Is it worth it? Should I try? Should I go
100%
down
worth
the
it.
8 billion episode rabbit hole?
Yes, you should. And like honestly, like I mean, I'm a rebel at heart too. And everybody's like, oh, you should like look for the there's like guides on like what's a filler episode. And I made it through the first arc and I was like, I will watch every single episode of this. I don't give a fuck. Like as long as it takes,
Yes, I
I
love
am
it.
in.
That was me with Naruto.
Yes, and like Naruto is like a rabbit hole too, but like I'll get there one day. But kind of with Demon Slayer and our hero there, Tanjiro, what are your thoughts?
First of all, I want to dye my hair like Tanjiro very soon.
Yeah,
But okay, Tanjiro, first of all, the Demon Slayer story is fucked up. Which,
yeah,
first of all, that just totally validates my theory that we're all low-key kind of fucked up and we all low-key kind of like feeling fucked up because this show is like dark, yet there's so much universal wisdom in it.
yeah.
um there's so many moments where Tanjiro could have chosen to give up. I
Mhm.
mean, actually, I'm not going to say a spoiler. He could have chosen to give up, and instead he decided to use sort of this fight energy to
Mhm.
move forward in life. And I think it's such a metaphor for like rock bottoms. Like so many people when they go into rock bottoms, and I really don't want to blame the person. Like I think there's an element of like society and the environment we live in and how it creates so much stress in our bodies that
Mhm.
when people are in a rock bottom, it's common that they like stay there.
Yeah.
Or they numb it away. But it's such a metaphor. Like Tanjiro, he hits this rock bottom and he embarks on this quest and he learns how to fight demons, which are like the main antagonists of this show. And demons are essentially people that have been converted by another demon. It kind of reminds you of vampires, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it's a vampire vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, it like the demon like gives blood to the person that they're trying to convert into a demon, and
Yeah.
they become a
And
demon.
also that like the town or like regular people don't believe that demons exist. And the demon slayers are like the secret society that like fights the evil and everybody just goes about their business, not thinking that this stuff is real. That part always hit
Right.
me.
Yeah. I didn't even catch that part, and that just unlocks so many layers that I wasn't even aware of. And the demon slayers literally are the heroes of the movie or of the show that are purposefully putting themselves in a very high chance of death situation because these demons are powerful.
Ruthless.
And every time they eat a human, they become way more powerful. And there's some demons that have eaten like thousands of humans, and they're like basically gods on earth. And
Yeah.
Tanjiro is not even like that strong. Like but he has this unwavering, relentless faith, and he deeply gives a fuck about his sister who got turned into a
Easily.
demon, by the way.
Yes.
And but for some reason his sister doesn't want to eat people, so she's like a good demon. And
Yeah.
uh and he also has this insane level of resourcefulness and creativity. So like
Mhm.
while he's battling demons, he's like playing chess in his head with how he's going to beat the demon. And constantly, probably one of my favorite parts of, there's two favorite parts actually. One being that every time Tanjiro is fighting a demon, there's another voice in his head that's like, you're gonna fucking die. This is it. Like, this is your last breath you're gonna take. You're destroyed. You have no energy. But then there's this other voice that just creeps in and is like, actually do this and you're gonna win. Right. And it
Yeah.
works. He's constantly battling doubt. And
Mhm.
so many people think that they need to feel free of doubt before they take action on their hero's journey. And Tanjiro is such an example of, I'm doing it with doubt and anger
Yes.
and grief, and I'm moving forward.
Yeah.
And it's about which voice you choose to listen to. And then when he kills the demon, this is probably my favorite part. And like, just thinking about it brings up emotion. He like feels so much compassion, and he like mourns the death of the demon he killed.
Yes.
And they do a little flashback to like when the demon was a human, and the
Mhm.
demon, while the demon's like dissolving and dying, the demon is like
A moment of
reconciling with
peace.
their past because of Tanjiro's love.
Yes. Oh my
And
God.
it's just, oh, sorry, go
So
ahead.
no, good. I'm glad that you brought that up because like that's also one of my favorite things about Tanjiro, that he has that light and dark always, and it's always present with him. And like you said, it's what he chooses to listen to. But like in addition to the insight that he gets, or like spirits, if you will, that guide him, he has this constant reminder of his humanity, demons humanity, and like he, like the other demon slayers that he works with hate demons. Like they give them no slack, no credibility, no, like they're scum of the earth. We didn't need to kill them all. And he's like, he has so much compassion and sees their humanity. And it transfers to the humans in the show as well, that he may not get along with, or he's getting picked on, or like anything like that. Like he's always able to see humanity and have compassion for it. And I think another part of that, like you were saying before, he hits rock bottom, but he has faith. But he's also like so grounded in who he is and what he wants. Like he is a good old country boy that's like really into his family, and now
Yep.
like sisters only let, like he will do anything and everything to protect his sister, even though she don't need protecting, like she's got it.
Yeah.
But like he just knows who he is at his core, also willing to embrace change, like when things happen, not trying to give too many story spoilers, but like he's willing to roll with the punches, but hold steady to who he is at his core and what he wants and how he would like to move in this world. And the impact that he'd like to have is always present with him.
That's so good. And it's, yeah, he knows his values.
He knows his values.
He knows, yeah. And when you know your values, when you know what turns you on, when you know what activates your aliveness, for some people that's family, honor, and service. For some people that's creativity, abundance, and freedom. For some people that's, like, for some people that's logic and reason and ethics, right? Like, when for me, it's mischief, mystery,
Yeah.
and freedom. Mischief, mystery, and freedom. When you know, like, your values, you know, when you know what activates you, and when those values don't resonate anymore and you change them, like, and you're in tune with that,
Mhm.
like, there's just, then the mystery responds to you from the lens of those values.
Yes. And I think that last part of like being in tune with yourself and your values when they change, like I think so many people get hung up on like, oh well, I used to like this, and this used to be important to me, and now it has to be important to me forever, or else like something's wrong with me, or like I'm different, or like whatever. But like we're supposed to change. We're
Yep.
supposed to be interested in different things. We're supposed to have different values over the course of our life, because we change, shit happens, we grow, our purpose realigns, and we realign with it. And if we're so stuck on this is who I was, or this is how things were, we're not able to move forward.
Yep. So many people, like, they have been programmed to believing that life purpose has to do with like what you do for income.
Nope.
And uh wrong. Life purpose is you saying yes to the aliveness that is you, whatever that looks like. I just had a session with a client, without sharing their name or anything, that like they were so attached to like working on their business and creating more clients. But during the winter, which is when their parent passed away, that's the last thing they want to do. You know, and they were just pedestalizing this idea that they should be working on their business and they need to snap out of it. But that's the opposite of aliveness. So it was causing this tension that was creating like a freeze and a flight response in their body chronically. And they were just numb, like a boulder. They even said that. I feel like a boulder. I feel like a boulder.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, of course you do, because you're rejecting your own aliveness. You know? And I forgot where I was going with that. So I'm just gonna put a period on that.
Yeah, no, and I'll pick it up. But but that's like exactly what trauma is. It's like too much for too long, or it's too much too fast, or too little for too long. And when we're not paying attention, like it seems like he or they were putting too little into themselves, too little into their feelings, too little in their grief, their anger, and all of that for too long, that we go into a shutdown. And it's, and like, that's the boulder, that's the numbness, that's the, like, I can't even access this anymore. And like, yeah, maybe they're still working on their business, but how effective are you from that numb state? Like, we try to push ourselves and force ourselves to do these things because we think that's like, quote unquote, better. But it's like, what if it's just better for you to take a break and feel and grieve and rest and play, and you can come back to that shit later?
Yeah. Yeah, this is where, I don't know if this is true or not, but there's a part of me that believes it is. But like, we have a society that benefits from you being numb and thinking that your life purpose is your job.
100%. That's capitalism.
So of course, if you're numb and you think your life purpose is your job, and anytime you consider anything else that brings aliveness that has nothing to do with making money or proving yourself, and you feel guilt is often a sign that we're believing something that somebody else thinks or a system thinks as like more holy or worthy of belief than what we actually feel and desire. There's like a mismatch, and that dissonance creates the experience of guilt. So we feel guilty, we feel like we should be doing different. But it's like, anytime I hear that word should, I'm like, wait a damn minute. Like, my check engine light goes on. I'm like, should, okay, but what if you didn't have to do anything anybody else thought? What do you genuinely want? And even if what you want, your brain is telling you is wrong, like, what is that? I just want to know. I'm curious. And let's destroy, burn away in the fire of awareness and love the programming around that desire being wrong. Like, if you want to fucking take a 3-month break from your job because you saved all this money and you don't want to work and you want to live in the mountains for a bit, and then like you want to come back, and then after you're living in the mountains for a bit, you're like, actually, I want to get into music now. I don't even want to go back into selling insurance, right? Like, this is where the mystery component comes in. You know, but so many of us are so chronically stressed and constantly scrolling on social media and sort of avoiding our mind because it is uncomfortable. Uncertainty is really fucking uncomfortable. Yet I promise you, like, person listening to this, that if you just stretch yourself 1% to 2% into being willing to listen to silence and to listen to the wisdom within your own body and within nature, and to sort of ask for your next steps, as if someone's going to respond to you. Eventually you'll get an answer, and the answer might make you a little uncomfortable, but that's where courage comes in. We don't watch a fucking hero's journey because they're confident and they're blissed out. Tanjiro in Demon Slayer is terrified.
Yeah, and we think he's gonna die a lot.
Yeah, and every single time he has a voice in his head saying, you might as well just give up. He does it with that voice. He holds that. He's not sitting around being like, well, I need to fix away this voice before I finally listen to the uncertainty, before I finally go on my quest. you know? And I promise you, like, listener, you're probably like, your body's always communicating with you. This wisdom, this mystery is always communicating with you. I bet you anything throughout this conversation, you're getting like flashes of a curiosity or of a little thread that you can pick up on and start a quest.
Yes.
And then there's another voice that's saying, oh, but you're not ready for that. That's exactly what you need to do, bestie.
That's exactly what you need to do. And even going with the uncertainty part of it and getting comfortable with the uncertainty and comfortable with the mystery. I know the questions out there. Like, okay, when I listen and I hear this voice, how can I be certain that that's the thing that I should do? What if it gives me another idea? What if it's like you want to go outside and take a walk, but what if it's like you also take a nap? How do I know who's right? And it's just like, explore, do both, see what actually feels good when you try. But I think so many people have been conditioned to look outside themselves for answers when they are always within us. And it's a question that I just like to open-endedly pose of like, why do you trust more if someone tangible says, this is what you should do, versus the voice in your head that says, this is what you should do?
It's a great freaking, every question you ask says fucking iconic. Okay, so really, there's two timelines, right? In this conversation, there's always infinite, but like there's two options, there's two roads we can take. I like the word timelines because it makes me feel like a wizard. So I'm gonna go with it. There's two timelines. One is the timeline of trusting yourself and feeling afraid. Even though everybody around you is saying no. And the timeline of faith is more powerful than proof. I don't need fucking evidence. My desire is enough validation, right? There's that timeline. And there's also a lot of fear in that timeline, a lot of courage, a lot of doubt that's going to come up. And then there's the other timeline, which is like, okay, I'm going to totally gaslight the shit out of myself and agree with this person over myself. And sure, you're going to get the comfort of being in quote unquote certainty, whatever the fuck that even means. But your soul knows you're lying to yourself. Some part of you, your body is going to start aching, maybe. For some people, it shows up like that. For some people, it shows up as like this chronic undertone of anxiety. You know, perhaps there's more of a desire to escape the body with, you know, dopamine behaviors, right? You know, things like scrolling, binging of any kind, drugs, right? Masturbating like vigorously all day, every day. You know what I mean? Like, and there's this yeah, sure, you have the comfort, the quote unquote certainty, yet there's this constant disappointment, like a cloud looming over you. And some people die with that cloud over their graves. And some people, they're like, actually, no, I'm going to trust myself. And they're willing to risk their relationships with people. They're willing to piss people off that call themselves their friends. And they're willing to sometimes, in some cases, when you start going down that path of saying yes to the mystery and your hero's journey and your aliveness, you're going to literally piss off everybody that fell in love with your mask. And they're going to start falling away like flies. And then that's another level of you calling back your energy. In that moment, are you going to hold the line and keep trusting yourself? Or are you going to listen to the voice of doubt that said, actually, you were wrong, run back to get the approval of people that you don't even like? And but again, the hero's journey is constantly like that. It never stops. So it's like, you're always going to find another sort of boss battle where like you come face to face with having to risk a relationship with someone, as an example, to choose yourself. And that's just it's like another test or initiation into the next level of self-trust. And there's infinite levels of self-trust.
Yeah. And I see it like, just to elaborate on that, it's like not just the willingness to piss people off or lose people, but like the willingness to expand into the next version of yourself, even if that's at the behest of your current self. Like it usually feels like it is like, oh fuck, what am I like? I actually like my life, and then now I have to do different shit. And it's like, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's always in service of your highest good.
Yeah.
Uh, but
1,000%.
yeah, um, one thing that I actually watched Stutz last night. Have you seen it?
Stutz? I'm not familiar with it. Tell me more.
Yeah, it's it's on Netflix. It's a documentary by Jonah Hill, and it's about him and his therapist. And basically it's like he's like, you've changed my life. Like I actually feel better. Like you have all these tools, and I just wanted to like share that with other people. And like as you watch, you'll be familiar with a lot of these tools, just said in a different way. But one of the ones he describes is like Project X or X Factor or something about an X. But he basically calls that your shadow side, and the voices, the criticism, the doubt, the part of you that's like, you can't do it, you're not good enough, why would you ever think of that, like blah blah, like that part of you is necessary and never goes away, because it's what facilitates your own hero's journey. Like without that voice, like you wouldn't be have bravery, you wouldn't have courage, you wouldn't have fear, like there wouldn't be anything to overcome.
That's so
Like
good.
yeah, it's
As you
like,
said that, I just got chills all
oh,
over.
I got them too.
Yeah, it's like,
It's spoken.
bringing it just the Tanjiro Demon Slayer example, right? The main character of Demon Slayer. That show would be really fucking boring if you just felt confident the whole time and like was slaying every demon without fear. What
Mm-hmm.
makes us connect and plug into it, and what makes a fucked up show generate so much pleasure
Mm-hmm.
is the experience of, oh shit, it's possible that that voice might never go away, and all I need to do is just act in spite of that voice being there. And
Yeah.
it's relatable. You know, I've never ever, like, I guess unless it's a comedy, but even comedies have conflict. Like what makes a movie or a show interesting is conflict and conflict resolution. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, I don't watch a movie for the happy ever after, you
Mm-hmm.
know. It feels good to see the happy ever after when it ends, when the conflict ends.
Yeah, but
But it's
they
like,
had to go through something first.
yeah, I like to imagine, like, one thing I've been doing lately is like, especially when I'm going through something that I'm resisting and really upset that I'm experiencing, I like to imagine like if God was watching the reality TV show of Carlos DelaPlaya, like
Mhm.
would he, she, they be having a great time? And I'm like, yeah, hello. They're eating popcorn. They're eating popcorn. Like, damn, this is getting good. This is getting spicy. We can
Mhm.
sort of operate in our lives with that consciousness. We can touch that consciousness from time to time of like, okay, it's good for the plot. Like this shitty moment is happening. It's good for the plot. It's good for the plot. You know, that's one of my favorite affirmations, actually.
It's good for the plot. No, but really, like even finding ways to look at those down periods or those low periods or those like overcoming the struggle periods as not like, this is something I need to get out of, this is a problem, like something's wrong with me because I haven't figured this out yet. But like, that's the point of the whole fucking story. Nobody's into it, nobody watches unless you go through some shit. So this is the part where you earn your happily ever after. Like I don't usually like to say earn, but in this scenario, we're all going to go through some shit, and getting like not even getting through it, but going through it, being in it and not trying to just get out of it, but actually learning how to enjoy that process is where life is lived.
Yeah, yeah. And this is why I love the idea of like pleasure coaching and what you do, and just this idea of focusing on the pleasure. Because when we focus on the pleasure, it takes us into the present, right? Like let's say we set a goal, and um and I used to do this a lot, right? So if this is you, nothing to beat yourself up about, it's super, but um I used to set goals and just really convince myself that I wouldn't feel good until I reached that goal. So like I would hit these goals, but I would constantly burn out and then need to like go into hiding for a month or two and then do it again and again and again until eventually I was like, wait a damn minute, something's off here. And like what really started changing the game for me is it's like is like really tuning into my body and being like, in this moment, like what feels pleasurable about this journey? And actually feeling the sensations. Like you could even ask yourself right now, in this moment, what parts of my body are experiencing some measure of pleasure, even if it's just 1% of my body right now? Where is it in my body? Is it in my armpits? Is it in my belly? Is it in my heart? Is it in my throat? Where is it? And just learning to pay attention to that often, and understanding that if you're constantly doing things that shrink that pleasure or you don't feel it at all, then that's just a sign that like what you're chasing after might not actually be for you. It might be somebody else's dream.
Yeah, or a sign to even like learn how to connect with your body and what certain things mean. Because fun fact, like excitement from an orgasm and anxiety, nervousness have the exact same physical sensations in your body, but it is a different story that we associate with like the two different scenarios. Which one we're like, oh yeah, give me some more of that, and another one we're like, this is bad. So like even just like reconciling with your body that like what you're feeling isn't bad, like they're all just feelings. And from that orgasm example, like you can literally get pleasure out of any feeling, but it does take practice and primarily awareness.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like for me, what how I've navigated that journey is like there's like different stages. There's like the stage of like, oh fuck, like I feel like shit on the way to this goal. And then there's the stage of like, where in my body is there pleasure? And then there's the stage that I started experimenting with of like a sensation that feels painful. What if maybe there's like pleasure inside that pain? And like now in that meta of like, oh fuck, like maybe that anxiety, to use your example of nervousness, right? Like maybe something about that is actually like kind of pleasurable. Like, can I tune in to the part of me that kind of likes it? You know? Like I feel like this is similar to like people that like being choked in bed, or that people that
Hey.
like being, you know, like, or people that like a little bit of pain or stinging kind of things. I think it's a similar mindset. It's like, how can I infuse sort of, you know, something that sometimes happens in my life is depression. And the last time it happened to me, in moments of despair, I started just playing with that question. Not in a way to gaslight myself or to force myself to be blissed out, but like, you know, assuming that it was even remotely possible that something about this experience can feel a little bit pleasurable. What is it? And just that question alone started making me relax. Like I wasn't resisting it as much. My
Yes,
muscles would loosen up and I'd be like, ugh, like
yes, because
really feeling it.
yes, pleasure breeds acceptance. Like
Oh,
even just asking yourself that question, it's like, because I have depression too, and like honestly, my cycle this year was one like I've never had before, because I related to my depression differently. Like it's like, oh, it's like asthma, like it's just something I got. And it like I don't know, it wasn't like a pleasurable experience, but it wasn't as shitty as it's been.
yeah. One time, yeah, no, and honestly, it's interesting that you navigated that, because same, I had the worst depression, or the most intense, not worse, but like the most intense depression cycle I've ever had in my life this year. And you know, it was not easy. It didn't feel good. But even in like the peaks of my despair, there was just one day where I just had this idea. I was like, if depression was like someone who had a massive cock and I was like riding its cock, like how would I experience depression? Like I started getting creative with it.
Yeah.
You know, or if I would even be like, if I was penetrating depression right now, Like, if y'all couldn't tell, I'm a homosexual man. Hilarious. But I would literally sometimes imagine myself having sex with the part of me that is depressed. And again, it's a way of saying yes to aliveness, right?
Yeah.
It can be done with anger, it can be done with grief, with anxiety.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make it, that doesn't mean you have to like it, or it doesn't mean you have to lie to yourself and say that you want it, even though maybe some part of you does. Like, it just means you're present. You're present and you're listening to the mystery.
Yes. And I think that presence is so important, because when we look back on this stuff, like even you being able to look back on the most intense depressive cycle that you've had and still find oh yeah, that was nice. That was fun. That was this question that I asked myself, instead of the oh yeah, that was just a bad time. Like even me reflecting on my life, there aren't very many, honestly, moments of pleasure that I remember, because I was so heads down trying to get out of depression, get out of anxiety, get out of my situation, get to that holy grail place, that so much of it is such a blur. That when I got to the place that I was trying to get to, I was married, I had a 6-figure job, house, a dog, I was supposed to be fucking happy. And I wasn't. And then I started asking, what the fuck? That was genuinely my question. A lot of this, what the fuck? But then when I started getting into this work and started exploring my current situation, and even though everything wasn't exactly what I wanted, how could I be happy then? That's when I really start having memories of and my divorce was not fun, but I remember so much, so many times where I just took time to be present, took time to have pleasure, and now I can reflect on that experience positively, even though it overall was not a positive experience. Being able to find those moments of pleasure, rack up in your I don't know, checkbook of life, that you get to a point where you can look at the overall thing and be happiness and see happiness and be happy without having it need to look a certain way.
Yeah, that is so good. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That is really beautiful. As you shared that story, I just remembered as within, so without, and what we pay attention to grows. And the quote is, what we pay attention to grows. So simply just paying attention to pleasure grows it. It grows our capacity in our nervous system to experience it. It creates more neural pathways that plug into pleasure, and more things start to plug into pleasure. And it's like a positive feedback loop. And when we choose to pay attention to pleasure, we start there's literally a magnetic field that can be measured. Scientists like Dr. Joe Dispenza have measured this, but there's a magnetic field that expands outward when we're he calls it heart coherence. I interpret it as focusing on pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we start to feel sort of those feelings where we're focused on pleasure, where we're accepting pain, we're vibrating at this frequency of saying yes to our aliveness. It actually creates a magnetic field that expands. I think it was 10 to 16 times bigger than somebody who's in resistance and just constantly in fight or flight. And so when people say you're so magnetic, it's because you're literally actually fucking magnetic. There's a magnetic field expanding outside of your body that people sense and plug into. And it starts with saying yes to aliveness. It starts with paying attention to what feels good inside your body and being present. It starts with saying yes to you. And saying yes to you means also saying yes to grief when it comes up, and anger when it comes up, and seeing if maybe you could find pleasure in it. And all these sort of tools literally create those neural pathways that expand that magnetic frequency. And again, all areas of your life start to shine with the injection of this magnetism.
Yes. So good. So true. I kind of just want to drop the mic there. But
So juicy.
yes, so juicy. I do want to be cognizant of time and just ask, do you have any special insights or advice that you are called to share with the listeners?
Yeah, I've been exploring this idea of like devotion. And devotion to me is another word for discipline. I personally don't really resonate with the word discipline because it sounds like punishment. And in my culture, I was raised in a Latin culture that sometimes we use English words in different ways. And to me, discipline just felt like punishment growing up. Um, and what I've been really paying a lot of attention to is this idea of devotion, which is literally the same thing. And I like the word devotion because it feels sexier and it feels magical in my body. But devotion is like an unwavering faith. Like it's unwavering faith and commitment to daily showing up for yourself. And sometimes showing up for myself is showing up at 100% today. And then tomorrow it's 10%. And then the next day it's 50%. And then the next day it's 30. And then maybe I have like 3 months where it's 8%. And like, but understand that mathematically speaking, like 1% of like $1 is not that much. But if you do 1% of $1 every day for 30 days, I forget the number, but it's like an insane amount of money. And it's not about being 100% on all the fucking time. It's about devotion. It's about holding your pain in one hand and with the other hand being like, I'm still devoted. I'm devoted to whatever it is I'm creating. For me right now, it's because I'm recovering from an ankle sprain and just some other health stuff. And devotion has been what's really kept me in sort of this energy of like self-love that's been really nurturing.
Yes. And then it just compounds exponentially. But I recently had this post called like discipline is a form of self-care. So like devotion is a form of self-care of just like being able to have that commitment to yourself, whatever it looks like in whatever capacity. It's just that commitment. And it can be, I will clean myself. Like, even if you don't even have it in you to take a shower, like, do a little baby wipes, do a little whole bath, like you deserve to be clean. Like I like will feed myself every day. That doesn't mean I'm cooking or like doing gourmet meals or whatever, but I'm gonna eat. And like just having those certain levels and like the more that you get comfortable with that discipline or that devotion, you can increase the stakes there, for lack of better words. But yeah, it is a form of self-care. So I love the devotion word there.
Yeah, it's such a good word. I was gonna say something, but it deleted from my brain. Hashtag fuck it.
It'll come back if it needs to.
Yeah.
But final question for you. How are you inviting pleasure into your life purposely this week?
Mhm. Thanks, bestie. You really have my back.
Of course.
We're a squad right now. How am I inviting pleasure into my life this week? There's a certain pleasure that comes from doing like responsible adult shit that you don't actually want to do, like physical therapy for a sprained ankle, right? It's not fun. It's very repetitive, very boring. Yet there's a huge pleasure that I feel right after it. And I'm also doing a lot of Wim Hof breath work. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's just a form of breath work that when I first suffered with chronic pain a few years ago, I credit it with healing most of it. And I stopped doing it. I was doing it for 2 years and then I stopped for like 2 years and now I'm ready to get back into it. And already I'm feeling the difference. And every day it doesn't feel good to do. While you're doing it, it's like really hard, actually. Yet I feel so fucking high after I'm done with it, and there's so much blood flow happening and oxygen in my veins, and so the pleasure of feeling good after doing something hard. That's how I'm really connected. It's like I call it responsible adult energy.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, Carlos, if the people wanted to contact you, how do they do that?
I'm super, like, honestly, the best place to contact me is my Instagram at Carlos DelaPlaya. I'm also really active on other platforms, but where I look at my DMs is Instagram. So I'm Carlos DelaPlaya on Instagram. I'm Carlitos DelaPlaya on TikTok. I also have Twitter and stuff, but if people will find that if they connect with me.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. It was such a pleasure talking to you today. And I am excited to put this episode out in the world. Thank you so
Same.
much for your time.
Actually, can I just mention, I
Of
also
course.
have a podcast. I totally forgot to say that.
Ah, thank you.
It's called the Spiritual Thirst Trap Podcast, and it's on Spotify.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
thank you, Amber. You're amazing.
Yes, all this stuff will be in the show notes as well. So correct spelling and all that jazz. So you guys can just click the button and get to it. But thank you, thank you, thank you so much again. And friends, we'll talk soon. Hey, friends. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Pleasure Priority Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If it's your pleasure, check me out on Instagram at Amber Taylor Coaching and my website, www.ambertaylorcoaching.com, for more on increasing your pleasure across all aspects of life. As always, make sure to follow the show and check back each week for a new episode. I'd also love it if you'd leave an honest rating and review, and if you'd share the show with anyone else you think would benefit. Much love. Talk soon, friends.